Okay, I guess Sarah's waking up. She's not psychic, but she can hear a ruckus down in the basement. She's walking over to the door. That's a wicked shot. A meat cleaver stuck inside of a uprooted tree stump, and now this guy is lumbering like a zombie through the hotel at night. Finally, some spooky stuff, and it's lit awesome, like cat people. Sarah's walking down the hallway. This guy's stalking through the hallways. Now he's walking up the stairs. She sees him at the bottom of the stairs, panics. Cue the overly dramatic music. She's banging on Brooks's door, begging him to come out. Whatever entity is controlling him just got a sense of what room Anne's is. It walks in on her, and she's just waking up out of sleep. Sees a scary guy coming in the room, making a menacing grin with a big old meat cleaver.
Time to die.
Alright, it did a quick cut to her face, cut to his face, kind of built up some tension there. As her eyelids grow, it keeps cutting to him getting closer, and bang. Brooks shot him in the back. Stone cold motherfucker, Brooks. That was badass. So I guess you could give the guy a traumatic head wound earlier by bashing it in, but if you shoot him in the back, that'll permanently stop the possession. Whatever. Now they're back in the basement, and they're wrapping up this guy's body. Oh, the guy he killed earlier was not Hans. It was Fedora Man, the tour guide. Hans is down here right now with a lamp. Oh, thank God Hans is still alive. They're investigating the body. This is a really cool low-angle shot. It could have been an influence on John Carpenter's The Thing when they're looking at the bodies on the tables. The camera's tilted up slightly. Out of focus, you see the body in the foreground with a sheet over it, and everyone is kind of towering over it with the deep shadows behind them. And Professor Von Duck is saying, look, when you hold the oil lantern near their body, it's like his skin and flesh is becoming crystallized, like meat that'd been deep frozen. Hans is freaking out like a little bitch. Oh, that was a cool effect. A 3-layer dissolve effect of different stages of a rotting hand, like the guy just suddenly decomposed in real time. So he is dead, or as much as dead as these things can be, where he's not going to keep moving. Trisket comes down the stairs ranting about how we got a call from the observatory that the cloud is now doubled in size and it's now headed down into the valley where the hotel is. These creatures don't feel safe no more. They're coming out of their comfort zone to declare war. Hans is trying to call for help, but all the phone lines out aren't working. And there's a ton of hotel guests. I guess this was a popular day. The hotel is crowded. On the worst possible day, this could happen. Brooks's plan is, let's get everybody up to the observatory. It's built to withstand earthquakes and avalanches. It's a bunker. It's an impenetrable fortress. So, like an escape boat, they're getting everyone into the ski lift elevator to go up to the observatory. Heard a car speed off. Who's that? It's Hans. Brooks runs outside and sees Hans take off like a coward inside of his car. You bastard! Alright, there's a little girl playing with a bouncy ball, and her mom looks like Tippi Hedren in The Birds. That's gotta come back later. A close-up shot of the little girl dropping her ball. Alright, Triscuit's helping with people's luggage, getting everyone evacuated to this observatory. Cut to the miniature scale model and matte painting of the ski lifts going up. It cuts to a close-up shot of the gears and pulleys system that makes this elevator thing work. The crankshaft! You gotta crank it before you spank it. It's almost like a miniature rail station where they're letting everyone on. Interior shot of the lift. Professor Von Duck and Sarah, the older sister, are riding. Professor, are you sure we're doing the right thing? But I do know it's too dangerous to be down in the village with that cloud coming down on us. It would really suck if you were in this lift and the cloud came. Just snip the wires and adios amigos. That was a really awesome miniature shot. Production created a small scale miniature of a ravine from the vantage point of a ski lift going up, and they're using dry ice to look like fog moving across the valley floor. Almost looks like something out of John Carpenter's The Fog. Alright, cut back to Brooks, and they're communicating with all the hotel staff. I guess they're volunteer villagers helping out with evacuating everyone. Alan, look at this. In the deep frame is a matte painting shot of mountains, and then there's more miniatures of the neighboring hotels. The mysterious fog is rolling across all these trees and hotels. I wish they would linger longer on these shots. I'm so spoiled by Godzilla movies. Tris gets very alarmed. Brooks is scared, but he's keeping that heroic demeanor. I wonder if it influenced on some level on Stephen King's short story and the movie The Mist. There's a cloud coming, and he was like, if only we could see within that to see what's hiding in there. Well, we'll know soon enough. It cuts to a shot of the lobby, and the camera is panning down. There's no human subject. The camera is just following something on the ground to get to a certain shot. Foley artist or sound design team is making it sound like something is crawling. Maybe the things are invisible that live within the fog. And there's that strange chime sound that comes back on the sound effects every so often. The camera pans past the little girl's baseball or bouncy ball, and now it's tilting up to a door. There's a floodlight effect coming out from the gap at the bottom of the main door of the hotel. They're feeding in dry ice fog. That definitely influenced Carpenter's The Fog. And there's shadows moving under it also. If that fog smells, these creatures reek of turpentine. Alright, Brooks is like, we've got to hurry. They're on top of us now. Brooks just doesn't seem very worried about it. Whatever. Alright, cuts back to this little loading area of the lift. And Brooks is letting everybody on the ski lift. This woman is lingering behind. She's saying, I can't find my child. What did I say? She went to look for that little rubber ball. It's the same damn little rubber ball from the Changeling. Of course, the child. She's stuck at the hotel getting flooded. Brooks is like, I'm going to go make a heroic rescue. And Triskett's like, but what about you? And he just said, do as you're told. Listen, journalist, I don't read your commie pinko rag. Do what you're told. The woman wants to go rescue her kid too, but Trisket is restraining her. Patience, woman! Where the fog was rolling in under doors earlier, 2 breakaway doors fell, and there is a giant, creature looks like a disemboweled testicle mixed with maybe human brain tissue, and it has a human ocular eye with a bunch of tendrils that come off of it like nerves. It's almost like if someone's eye got removed and started being able to move around on its own, using all its optic nerves as tendrils and tentacles. It's a pretty good creature effect.
It's party time.
The puppet effect makes the eye look around the room. The little girl's just wandering into the room to get her ball, and the creature notices she's coming in. A really gross close-up of its slimy eye.
Ding, 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 ding.
The little girl crouched down to pick up her ball, and as she's raising back up, the tentacle raises up with her, and she realizes it's not just a piece of rope or wire. It quickly coils around her, and it's constricting her, lifting her up off the ground. And Brooks rushes in with a giant pickaxe. The creature's making a roaring sound that sounds like engines revving at a derby race. He's a pretty good shot with that pickaxe. He hit it in one blow. And the creature let out a painful yelp. I snipped off your finger. It's making this funny wailing sound like Judge Doom. Also the Miss Piggy voice in Kung Pao. A Swiss guy is speaking to the woman in some kind of Dutch sounding language, trying to calm her down. Tell her Mr. Brooks will do the right thing. Okay. And he comes back in the room with the baby. Thanks for nothing, lady. Go get in the cable car and leave. We're all going. Brooks gets in as well. The first shot is stock footage of people actually riding on these at some resort. And then another shot is of one very close up, ascending the mountain.
Funiculi, funicular.
Pepperoni on the walls.
Alright, now there's a teddy bear that the girl dropped down by the transmission and gearbox of this trolley lift, and the fog is coming into the room. Although that time it didn't look like dry ice fog, it just looked like someone left the shower on. That was a close shave. Alright, the DP is doing some emphasis lighting to show that the invisible entities within the fog are trying to tamper with the transmission, trying to get the belts to snap or pull them back, more likely. That screeching nails on a chalkboard sound of a transmission belt tearing. He's asking the guy on the ski lift, can this contraption work in extreme cold? I think they're going to try to break the cables with cold. Too bad they didn't have a miniature of this flailing around, because it's kind of not a tense sequence. They're having to pretend they're getting thrusted around. And once again, it's not showing anyone's vantage point of how high up they are. You're just supposed to imagine. Come on, you got to get a matte painter in there to show the vertigo effect. And with all its tampering, they're still slowly making it to the top of the observatory at a normal speed. And occasionally they just jerk around to act scared. They made it there safely. It's kind of a pointless scene. That could have been an amazing set piece that people would still talk about today. Alright, now they're at the exterior of the observatory and cut to the hallway within the observatory. Everyone's hunkered down like it's the UK subways during World War II bombing raids. And this scientist is letting them in the big metal hatch door.
Welcome.
The camera tracks with them. Cowardly Hans, bartender's up there, who sped off. He's toking a blunt. They go to the main observatory set, and Brooks is coming to look at Von Duck's radar. We're in big trouble. The cloud is splitting up. He says, check that radio. Are we going to call for help? Brooks is like, no, we're going to try to use the radio against them. Oh, I thought he was actually going to do something with the radio frequency. They're calling the United Nations or the nearest Air Force's air squadron to come in and drop bombs on them. That'll do the trick. When you meet a creature from another scary universe that you can't communicate with, just rain blows upon them until they're a bloody mess, and then see if peace talks can begin after that. Brooks is walking back and forth, bossing everyone around. One of the lab assistants got a motion sensor alarm from the exterior, and Hans is outside now, acting really weird. He's like scratching himself. He's been hitting the pipe too hard. That's Hans from the hotel. Let's let him in. Brooks is trying to be pragmatically optimistic, but you can tell from his expression that we're in for some bumpy weather. Now the lab assistant is going down the hall set to open it and let Hans in. Hans comes in. He's acting way different than before. What was that you smoked, dude? This guy looks like he has a bunch of padding under his clothing. He has like that Stacy Keach lip. You alright, Hans? Yeah, I'm just a little, Hans is complaining of being way too overheated, but it's clearly wintry. Alright, they seem to think he's alright, and they walk away from him. Camera slowly pushes in, and now he's got a mysterious smirk. He's one of the fog-possessed people now. Anne is sitting down in the lobby, and it does this really cool Scorsese-esque push-in on her face. She realizes that one of these possessed people is near her. Her eyes slowly look up, and Hans is making the creepiest, just looks like a deranged sex offender. They're staring at each other from two ends of the room, and all the men are talking about like what they're going to do about the monsters, not realizing that the mood has gotten tense. He's mad-dogging her from the other end of the room. And Anne gets up, and she's going to hide inside of Professor Von Duck's office. She said, I'm just going to go get some ice. Brooks is thinking maybe we can use Anne's shining to call for help or use against the creatures in some way. Obviously, she feels the premonition of these things. This is a pretty good scene. While he's doing all this exposition, trying to convince Sarah, you can see out of focus in the background, Hans is making his way to the room she just hid in. One of the laboratory assistants is calling the professor over. The assistant says that the temperature is dropping rapidly from what it was. It had been in the 20s and now it's into the 40 below. Brooks has the brilliant idea that since these creatures are so cold, maybe we can make them really hot. You, sir, need the Nobel Prize. Hans came in a little while ago. Now Brooks is like, Hans, what's he doing up here? He said he changed his mind. Brooks is all startled. He knows Hans is up to something. Where is he? He's hiding in the corridor. He ain't in the corridor. Where is that dirty kraut? I'm gonna fucking circumcise him with a butter knife. They rush into Von Duck's office, and he is choking Anne out. Get off of her, you creep. Trisket jumps on his back. Trisket's a little guy. He's pretty brave to take on this big bratwurst man, and now Brooks is gonna manhandle him. He put Brooks in the camel clutch. This guy has the strength of like 3 men. Ew, he's bending Brooks over the doctor's desk, and it looks like he wants to take his pants down. He must be like really hurting his spine or something. Brooks is reaching for one of the doctor's 90-degree right angle tools that's in the shape of a sharp triangle, and he slowly wraps it around. Oh, he stabbed the dude in the Von Stucker with it. I told you he was going to go in there and do some slicing and dicing of that German meat. He let out the biggest goofy yelp when he got stabbed in the nuts. Alright, don't stop stabbing him though. Stab him repeatedly in the head. In fact, stomp on his head until your foot's covered in brain. We know what happens to these things when you think they're knocked out or dead. Sarah's trying to wake him up. More importantly, check on the little girl who just got strangled by this douche. Let's be honest, Hans was not a very good bartender. He didn't know how to make a Bloody Mary. Brooks is in army mode now. He's wanting to call in an air raid officially. Professor Von Duck is reiterating that this is essentially a bunker. I think Brooks is getting the idea to use incendiaries. I don't know, with the lab chemicals. He says every time we've come into contact with these creatures or the people possessed by them, it's like they look like they've been in a deep freeze. So now we're going to use heat. So I believe it was Confucius that said, me mind on fire, me soul on fire, me feel it hot ×3. It is a lab, so they have a ton of rubbing alcohol. He's saying get all the jars and rags that you can get Oh yes, Vyacheslav Molotov, the Finnish gift to the world that was a parody of the commie chairman. Alright, cuts to the exterior of the observatory. It looks like Power Rangers Zordon's palace. There's a miniature of the mountainside, and the fog is crawling up the mountain face. Spooky music, weird little sounds, chirps and blips. Ugh, this thing breathes like it has bad case of emphysema. America runs on Duncan! And all these little tendrils are growing. They must have filmed this in reverse, pulling the roots down off the mountain and then played it back in reverse, Evil Dead style. It's pretty cool, the way the creatures slowly move like plants through the fog. There's two of them. It's moving towards the camera. Its eye is looking around. That must have been pretty terrifying back in 1958. So I count maybe 4. They're coming in on all sides of the bunker. They don't know how to get in. One of the miniatures of these creatures actually pulsates, like they filled it with an air bladder. These things are breathing like they're hyperventilating, or they're a little too excited to see Brooks, if you know what I mean. Alright, they're doing an old-timey resistance, filling these bottles with all types of explosives, kerosenes, chemicals, alcohols. Brooks is walking down the hall to make sure everyone's doing their job right, getting armaments ready. He says, "Men, nobody leaves this corridor unless I say so, because I think he's afraid of infiltration from the fog creatures." And he says that we do have help on the way, so he called in a bomb squadron. If this thing can withstand an avalanche, it can totally withstand, unless it was an atomic weapon. The artillery that planes dropped back then was, I don't know if they were bunker buster level explosives yet. They were pretty devastating, but now he looks at the instruments one last time. Now he's rushing down the hallway, and Brooks is being handed a Molotov that someone lit. Brooks is saying, "If I go outside and I don't do a knock, don't let me back in. Go give him hell." He runs outside and sees one crawling up the mountain. He threw the Molotov right in its face. This really loud sound, like someone scratching their finger across a theremin. I guess it's the sound effect for that thing squealing. He knocked and the guy let him back in. And there's a ton of fog or smoke in already. So I don't know if it's doing the trick. Chemical reaction on the creatures. Now Trisket is going to try his hand at throwing a Molotov. "Don't do it, Trisket. You're a little bitch. I'll take you to the zoo tomorrow." He threw one at one of them. He made a pretty good hit. But one is flanking him, crawling up behind him on top of the observatory. This one looks a lot nastier, like a hairy nutsack. And it's lowering its tendrils, and it is strapping his neck up like a noose. And there's a little G.I. Joe doll getting lifted by a miniature. Go ahead and take him. That's my least favorite G.I. Joe character. You keep your hands off Snake Eyes. It cuts back in. There's a lot of cross-cutting, so sorry if I'm not saying all the exact shot descriptions. Professor Von Duck rushes into the hallway and tells Brooks that via the instruments he sees that this creature is choking out Trisket and lifting him up onto the roof. So now Brooks is running outside with a Molotov. Who filled this one with urine? He runs outside. He sees Trisket getting choked out on the roof. He threw it up there and it bounced off of Trisket's head and then hit the monster. What if he just lit Trisket on fire? Alright, Trisket fell limp. He's still alive. He's just way out of oxygen. They all crawled back into the bunker. Trisket's trying to catch his breath. Brooks is checking on him. The creatures are crying outside with fire on their bodies. Crying out with barbecued chicken for skin now. I wonder how that would smell. It smells like burnt Sasquatch hair. Now they're going back into the main observatory to look at the instruments, to see what the heck going on. All the fire they threw has caused smoke that's blocking the cameras, and now a giant Royal Air Force bomber is coming. And it is a different actor playing the pilot than the small search party plane from earlier. Brooks is just kind of tying all the scenes together, walking. He went into the office now and he's asking, "Is Anne okay?" "Yeah, I think she'll be okay." Alright, just making sure everything's running for the climax of this film. This is when a director is following a script a little too close, but they're also boxed in by the amount of sets and effects that they have. The camera tilts up and shows that Anne is basically an unconscious schlub at this point. You would think that would make the creatures not be able to detect her anymore if she's unconscious. It keeps cutting to exteriors of the creatures on fire, flailing their limbs around, but they still seem pretty active. The pilot is radioing everyone within the observatory saying, "I can't see you guys, you're covered by too much clouds." And Brooks is saying, It is the clouds. Bomb the clouds. Your target is the clouds. One of those Lakitu Koopa Troopas is flying around. You need to hit him with everything you've got. I guess this is the thing Brooks says. The pilot said, it doesn't seem very resourceful to me to bomb a cloud. And he says, just do what you're fucking told. Or so help me God, when you land on the runway, I'm going to run out there and suplex you into the canvas. Yes, sir. Out. See, you can walk over Europeans easy. You just got to put some bass in your voice. Hopefully this bunker will withstand the heat of those bombs. It's cutting to everyone looking tired out in the different rooms of the observatory. Ooh, and inside Dr. Von Duck's office, one of the walls is cracking. Sarah doesn't notice that a concrete wall is cracking. Alright, the model wall snapped open and one of the eyes is looking at her. She covers Anne's unconscious body to protect her, and a tendril is reaching in. A far superior creature feature from this same year, besides the original Blob, is a Fiend Without a Face, and those brain creatures in that are claymation, and the spinal cord is the little tentacle tendril they move around with, and there's a shot exactly like this where Brooks is getting strangled. Finally, Trisket gets to be the hero. He rushes in to help. He grabs a Molotov from one of the radars, runs back into the office, and chunks that thing right in its eye. You're a mensch, bro. A legend. Alright, and that creature cried out, and they rush out of the professor's room, and they hear the jet engines approaching. This really cool shot of everyone hunkered down in that hallway, all the hotel guests looking at the ceiling in fear. And now a bombing onslaught begins. Steady. Open the bomb bay doors. Snip the... Oh, pretty good. They rigged this set with all these cute miniature monsters with firecrackers everywhere. And their tentacles are like flailing like they're being electrocuted. Okay, bomb them again. Just keep bombing. It's crazy how there's only a handful of angles they can film these miniatures from. And it shows how much planning and storyboarding can take the energy and excitement of your climax. Because Tarantula from a few years before this has a very similar bomb the creature ending, and it's still pretty exhilarating today. This one is just kind of like, we're just watching these creatures get cooked. I'll baptize that piece of calamari. Someone's just leaving the squid out to cook a little too long on the grill. Well, they don't really have eyelids, but it would have been cool to see one of the creature's eyes roll back in their head. And heroically, the bomber plane did a little loop through the air, and now it's cutting to the exterior and everything is cooked. There's just the burnt husks of these creatures everywhere, and it almost looks like that dead roots that wrap around everything in War of the Worlds. Alright, the big metal shield door is going up, and they are triumphant. Hooray, everyone go home. Tell the villagers we fixed the problem. They can go down the mountain anytime they like. Anne has a sense of happiness, and Trisket is just like grabbing her face. How do you feel, young lady? I feel fine. Why are you grabbing my face like I'm a baby? It almost seems like Trisket's gonna take her on a walk and like romance her. Sarah's okay with it. That guy's a hack. He writes yellow journalism. Whatever he writes is going to end up in the Inquirer. Sarah's walking over to Brooks. Everyone's happy that the evil has been vanquished. Everyone's having a cigarette. Well, smoke 'em if you got 'em. Alright, and then it cuts to the matte painting that began the film of the spooky mountain, but now it looks less foreboding and the evil cloud is gone. Well, isn't this magical? Cue credits. Alright. Hope you guys like that. Paulie made some pretty decent clip art based paper dolls for me. Could have been a lot worse. Alright guys, with that being said, I am going to go for now. Tune in next week for the public domain commentary night. And always remember, I got it off the vine. It's sweet like honey, and I plug it all the time. Adios.